Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. You can hear, you'll hear by his accent, he's Jochum, I'm Carsten. Jochum, there's something I didn't tell you, just with the slides and that, but you're actually probably in the heart or the home of real-time visibility, certainly in Africa. I'm not sure around the rest of the world, but what I can attest to you is from an African point of view. And the reason that I say that is, if you take a look at the slide there, Jochum, it's something I hadn't shared with you, but we've been doing real-time visibility in South Africa from the 1700s to 1800s already. And I'll show you tomorrow, depending on how good your presentation is, I might just take you for a educational site visit. But we've got a wine in South Africa called Kanonkop. You may have heard it, have had it in Amsterdam, yeah. And interesting story about that cannon. That cannon was never fired in anger. So it wasn't a cannon that was used in war, but that cannon was based or placed at the Simonsberg Mountains. And whenever the vessels came into Table Bay, a spotter would fire the cannon. And that signaled to all the farmers in the area to load up their wagons and get their produce down to the port. So, you know, if you want to take back to your business, the kind of where it all started, I'm guessing there's probably a real chance that it started here. So I'm not sure if the intellectual property rights, if there's something that comes back to South Africa from that perspective. So I think the good thing about it is, as South Africans, we've got a good and thorough understanding of the benefits of real-time visibility. You know, maybe not as slick as what you do in your business, but certainly it was a lot louder, you know, I think as it came through, yeah. So Jochum, I'm gonna hand over to you. Thank you for making the trip over and for sharing with us your insights that you've learned over the years from your company, FourKites. So I'll pass the clicker on to you.
Thank you. Well, that's something I didn't know. Reminds me of something that happens in the country where my wife grew up. She was in Aruba. As soon as the ships come in, the cruise ships blowing their horn, you can see all the vendors flipping the cards into other pricing. So it is copied around the world. So what I would like to do a little bit more is tell about supply chain visibility. What is it? How is it used? And specifically, what is the history? So this is not going to be a sales pitch. This is more like an in-depth, okay, what is real-time visibility and how can it help? In the past, what happened was more a hindsight, right? EDI connection, we were able to know when did the truck arrive or when did the ship come in, and we can work with the mirrors if we compare it to a car, right? What happened in the past and what can we learn from that to change that in the future? And we're getting more and more into the situation where we have real-time visibility, right? We know exactly where the truck is, when is it going to arrive. So dots on a map, so far, it's already helpful. It's already helpful to send out information to customers and retailers and DCs, where is my truck? Reducing the number of telephone calls or emails coming into your customer support department, hopefully, you know, getting that down by half. And we're getting more and more into predictive situations where we're able to, based on the information that we collected from the past, can tell you when should you leave from your distribution center to be there in time and save yourselves a lot of anger from your customers or even penalties if you're delivering to retail. Now, like I said, we're getting more proactive. So first of all, we started with where's my truck? That information is very helpful, and we're now progressing into more predictive situations where we can say, based on the information that we collected from the past, the weather, the traffic, the situation, macroeconomical, political, what should you do to arrive in time at your customer situation? Or if it's inbound, what should you tell your vendor to be in time to make sure they comply with your production planning? Then next is, okay, when should I pick up that load? Is predictive. And then in the ideal situation, in the near future, we go to autonomous, where everything runs by itself and we get help from platforms like control towers and so on. So that's going to be the ultimate step, where everything runs by itself. We can sit back and just count our money. That would be fantastic. Now, the current situation is the last couple of years has been disastrous for a lot of supply chains, right? I don't need to point everything out. Cyber attacks, closing down the ports in Durban, the riots going on in France, everything that's happening around the world, time and time again. I started working for FourKites in 2019, just before COVID-19 hit, and we've been in a constant battle with all kinds of risks ever since. So boardroom level executives are getting tired of the supply chains impacting their revenues. How do we get a firm grip on our supply chains? And I think real-time visibility is one of them. Now, this is something that you brought in.
Yeah, thanks, Jochum. I think the one thing that I wanted to just share with you is certainly what I've noticed when speaking to C-level prospects and customers and people with supply chains, that's really driving the demand or the want for visibility, besides the obvious benefits, is our friends in the fast food industry, as well as friends from Takealot and the likes of that. Because your whole B2C experience, when you order a hamburger, kind of, hey, it's frying. It's left the store, it's on the scooter, and by the way, you can see the dot where your hamburger is. Now that transaction probably costs you all of 80 Rand, which is I think €1 at the moment, the way the Rand went this morning. And then what we're finding, is people who've got cargo on trucks, to the value of 4 million Rand, that's about €5, are saying, well, when I pay 80 Rand, I get the complete visibility of where my burger is. I've got a 4 million Rand cargo on a truck, and all you can tell me is that it's in the tunnel, because there's no signal, and that's why you can only assume it's there. And that the art of the possible and that innovation is actually happening in the B2C space. So we're starting to see more and more the need and the value that's being identified in the B2B space for visibility. So that's just kind of a bit of a context of what I've observed here in this market.
Yeah, no, I totally recognize that. So that's what we in our part of the industry call the Amazonification of transportation. Right, this kind of services is in high demand, especially if you look at the boardrooms that are really trying to get a grip on things, and not too familiar with supply chain. They think containers magically appear at the gate of their DCs. Everything happens by itself. And then they point us to this one. And so what we see currently, and this is a Gartner research, like 50% of all the global leading companies will invest in some sort of real-time visibility this next year. And we already see a huge increase in Europe, and North America has been ahead of things slightly. The ELD mandate that's there for every truck on the road has helped tremendously. And to be really frank, all the disasters in supply chain is helping us a lot in Europe as well. So there is a high level of demand in real-time visibility, and this is coming to Africa as well. There is no doubt that this will happen in the coming 24 months in the US, or sorry, in Africa. Your customers, your shippers will be asking for this. Period. There's multiple suppliers, right? There's a lot of things. If you want to dot on a map, there's suppliers for that. If you want to go in depth, there's also suppliers on that one. So what we see is that this kind of execution, this kind of software is going to be a permanent part of the entire software suite the company uses. Right? ERP systems are here to stay. CRM, business intelligence programs, they're here to stay. And I think all of them are going to be fed with information coming in from transportation apps, real-time visibility apps, yard management. They are feeding the information into your BI, into your ERP systems. And the art that we have to conquer is make sure that your people do not have to switch user interfaces, but it's all integrated into one single overview, that they can just sit behind the screen, click on things that go wrong, and resolve it before disaster happens. So I think this is going to be a permanent situation where supply chain software is going to be a very big part of a large company's software suite. Developments are keep on going. So going back a little bit, right? Like I said, predictive ETA was a start. I'm not going to say everything or tell you everything that happens. One of the things that I wanted to point out is about network visibility. If you work with a large shipper and you work with Division A, normally they do not have visibility on the routes that they use for Division B. Now, wouldn't it be great if you have a truck going from, and I'm sorry for using European situations, I don't know about the distances in Africa that good, but if you have a truck going from Rotterdam to Milan for business unit or Division A, and it's then going back empty because you don't have a back load, it would be fantastic if then Division B could at least use part of that load to reduce your empty mileage. Now, sustainability is a very important topic currently in Europe. Right? It's high in demand. A lot of companies are setting up strategies to reduce or even completely neutralize their CO2 emissions in the coming 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Right? Empty mileage, 70% of the trucks is at least less than half full on the road in Europe. Now, if we can reduce that, that's going to be a huge win. And that's not only marketing, that's real reduction of CO2 emission. So that's the sort of thing that we aim to do. That can be between divisions, it can be between up and downstream colleagues, but it can also be between peers. So company A, let's take an example, a shoe manufacturer can work very well with a plastic cups factory, right? They probably have the same kind of customers, using the same truck, filling it up completely. That's going to have a very big impact. So if you are able to trust each other enough to share information about the transportation that you're setting up, right, you're able to collaborate, reduce CO2 emission that way, be more proactive, be more active in cost reduction. So that's the kind of thing that we see happening currently, that we're working on. And in the end, what we see is end-to-end order tracking. Right? Your purchase order probably has a lot of sources. Can come from different, or locations can come from different countries. So an overview of, okay, how far is my purchase order in delivery? That's something that we're offering now, so that you can just in one view see the status of your purchase order coming in. So that's the kind of thing that we are developing, and we haven't started yet. So this development is going very rapidly. To give you an example about the industry that we're in, the software development for supply chain visibility, 2 or 3 months is already a long time. So if we're talking about information from a year back, that's outdated. And we have a lot of competition in our market, which is good. Keeps us sharp, keeps us on the edge of development, and customers and partners like Carsten at Transnova, they really help us, connect to the market regionally. Now, to give you an example, one of the largest, if not the largest brewer of beer, AB InBev, is a longtime customer, and they set up on themselves a project that they wanted to improve their ETA information to share internally. Why? Because they didn't have a feel of, okay, how are our carriers performing? What are they doing? Carriers were unsatisfied, unhappy. The distribution centers were unhappy. The brewery was unhappy because they were not able to produce in time. And just by tracking all the loads, they were able to not only inform the carriers to speed up on specific things, but also were able to find out bottlenecks. So we're asking you to drive 10 kilometers within 20 minutes in the traffic in this city. That's impossible. So we're asking you more than you will ever be. We're setting you up to fail, basically. So adjusting that kind of information improves your carrier network, carrier performance, but it's also more realistic. And just by doing so, you optimize your brewery operations. They know exactly, with 96% ETA accuracy, right? They will have people at the docks right on time, except in the future, in the past, they would have people sitting there for 30 minutes because the carrier was supposed to be there and he wasn't. Or the other way around, the truck would be outside the dock for 30 minutes, nobody there to clear out the load. So that's the kind of optimization that you see. That way, production planning was much more able to rely heavily on the supply of materials, which allowed them to reduce their safety stocks. And that's money in the bank right away. So the other thing, right, warehouse operations, and again, we're going back to sustainability. Because they were able to track individual loads, they were also able to see, can we change into a different modality? Can we use, instead of trucks, can we use inland shipping? or can we use rail for that one? Right? Cost may be higher, but CO2 emission is a lot lower with trains. So that's the kind of thing that they found out has an impact on their organization just by having a 90% ETA accuracy for their carriers. Now this is AB InBev. Another example is what we do is Henkel. Henkel, I don't know if anybody has any, does not know what Henkel does. They will do just about anything around adhesives, personal care, and so on. They have set up a similar project. One of the things that they use a lot is notifications. So what we do with notifications is, a couple of examples is, for instance, if a truck is 50 kilometers outside of the expected route, there will be a signal to the carrier and to the planning department. It can be that the tractor is, going back because of time restraints, or there is just a mess up in the planning. That means that you can make changes while the truck is on its way and not get the unpleasant experience that the truck is in Düsseldorf when it should be in Amsterdam. So that's the kind of thing that they use notifications for. Temperature is one of the other things, right? If you move vaccines for COVID, right, they have to be at -80. Would be a shame if it would go during transport, it would go over to -70. Your whole load is going to be lost. That's a lot of money. So that's the kind of thing that they use the notifications for. And because of those notifications, they were able to perform a better customer service to their customers, retail mostly. So side effect, reducing customer penalties. There was a lot of money that they saved that way. Carrier relationships. They were more able to analyze what's going on with the loads on the way, where is our temperature going, and how can we reduce those bottlenecks that we always see. Sorry. Efficiency of facilities, the same here again, right? You know exactly when the truck is going to arrive at the dock. You have your team ready to unload it or load it. The truck is in and out in just 8 or 10 minutes, instead of waiting outside for 8 hours, costing you a lot of demurrage money. Sustainability tracking, again, same thing. Henkel has set up the strategic decision that they want to be CO2 neutral in 2040. Well, in able to do so, you need to know exactly what your CO2 emission is today. And that's the only way. And everything else, that's if you say, okay, I'm reducing a CO2 emission by 20% today, well, how do you know for sure? Unless you're tracking every single road trip that you're making. One of the things that they highlighted is that it was also cross-functional. Not only transportation was affected, but also finance. Right, allowing the truck driver to make a picture of the bill of lading being signed and sending that back to the carrier or to the shipper allowed them to pay the invoices on the spot, instead of what we see a lot in Europe, truckers be on the road for 2 or 3 weeks, come back to the carrier's headquarters, hand over all their PODs, and then the invoicing starts. That's 3 weeks late. That's an immediate effect on your liquidity if you can invoice immediately. So that's the kind of thing that we saw with Henkel. Now Coca-Cola is a whole different ballpark. The way Coca-Cola works is they make their secret paste and they share it with their bottlers and they create the Coca-Cola that we buy. What they did is sending departing load information to their bottlers, explaining them exactly when they were able to expect that paste, that they can make the Coca-Cola and the Fanta and all that thing. The total saving for bottlers in the US was a staggering 5 million crates that they didn't have to have in safety stock. That's an entire warehouse that they were able to, just get out of the way because they were sure that the materials were going to be coming in time. Now, getting proactive with the recommendation engine, based on weather information, based on traffic information, based on loads that we've had in the past, right? Our system is able to recommend you when your carrier has to pick up your load in order to be in time. And that's very helpful to make sure that you're going to be able to send that information to your butler to make sure his prediction planning is going well. Now, sharing loads, I explained a little bit about this. If you're able, as Coca-Cola, to share that the truck X is going to be 50 minutes late to the wholesalers, they can share that information with either with their customers, the retailers, or they can get their safety stock out and make sure that they're going to make it in time and use the incoming stock as safety stock again. So in that way, we help the customer helped to optimize the supply chain for their customers as well. And we give out EURLs, e-URLs as encrypted URLs that we send to every single customer that's about to receive anything from us that looks a lot like your Uber overview. So it's on the map, any modality. So if it's start off in a train, goes over into a container ship, and then on a train or an inland barge or whatever, you can see exactly where it is, what the ETA is, and when it should arrive. At your facility. That's the sort of information that allows your customers, the end customer, to act if something is going wrong. They should be doing something about it. So that's a couple of examples that I brought with me from customers in Europe and in North America. Recapping this, real-time visibility, it's not only giving you a dot on the map, it's giving you so much more. There's so many roles inside companies or outside companies that are affected by using real-time visibility. I'm not going to go through all the details, but I think this is more relevant. So what kind of business value is this driving, right? If you're a transportation director, reducing transportation costs, well, that's part of your job. So, our software can help realize it, or real-time visibility can help you realize that. Unlocking strategic initiatives. What are we going to do next? And the industry around real-time visibility is built up in such a way that it's directed by the market. So we have, for instance, in our organization, we don't have a separate production or product development department. We have a customer advisory board, and they decide where we should go in our developments next. I think that's a sensible way to go. Currently, and we receive globally in the bottom, you can see we receive any kind of information from any kind of modality, anywhere in the world, and we're able to predict the ETA properly based on that information. I think that's my part. You had, this was your arrivals board, Carsten.
Thanks, Jochum. That's been extremely insightful. I suppose for me, just if I have to kind of summarize and think about the impacts on the South African market or the African context, the immediate thing that comes to mind is with the fuel increases that have gone absolutely crazy, as they have over the last 3 months. It's probably now more important than ever to be more efficient in how you spend distributing your goods. And I suppose if I think, Jochum, we probably got about, I would guess, normally distribution costs make up about 12% of turnover of a company. That was historically before the fuel price increases. I guess that figure is probably up to 16, 18% now in the last, if you compare year on year back in history. Don't know if there's any CFOs who are tracking those kind of numbers and those kind of stats. But it's becoming a bigger and bigger part of the percentage of your spend. So that focus is key. I think if I add to that, as in the business that we're in, we do a lot of transportation planning. And there's been a strong evolution from planning, and we've had a lot of planners in the business, and then we've started to employ what we call execution agents, which are really people who are on the phone and phoning the transporters every day and saying, where's your truck, and what's your staging points. And we found that the value that the execution agents are bringing to the business over the last year is almost more important than the work that the planner's doing. And I suppose it just supports that old saying that a poor plan well executed is better than a great plan poorly executed or not executed at all. And, I'm thinking that, with this level of technology, where technology is going, where devices are going, et cetera, it's starting to enable that process. And this, I've been in the space of transportation management and transportation management systems from 2000. The next evolution is this visibility, and I suppose it's supported by your your view or Gartner's view of 50% of leading companies will invest in that. And Jochum, I suppose I've got a question for you that says, in the supply chain, you had the slide up, there's quite a lot of people involved in that supply chain, but typically, who would you say, whose responsibility is it to initiate the process of creating visibility in the supply chain? So would that be the retailer? Would it be the shipper? Would it be sort of a material? Because somebody's got to take ownership of this visibility journey.
Correct. Yeah, correct. No, that's well, the answer to that is relatively simple. So far, what we've seen is that is the shipper. That's the manufacturing company, and we set up an integration with their systems. We retrieve the data from the carriers, and the same information that we share with the shipper, we also give for free to the carriers in return for the information that we get from their vehicles. So it's a shipper.
Okay. Yeah. So thanks for clarifying that, Jochum. I think next time we're going to co-present, I'm just going to make sure the guy's more my height, so we don't have to change the microphone. I think that's just an important thing. So, sorry, Jochum, and you're a tall guy. Yeah. So interestingly enough, as well, when we typically engage customers about visibility, typically a lot of people turn and say, "Yeah, but our customers have all got tracking on them." Yeah, and they do. And it's a dot on the map. And if you go into any one of those operation centers, you'll see a map with a lot of dots. Yeah, kind of don't know where they're going and what cargo they've got on. But equally, the kind of historical mindset has always been that the value is only telling the customer. But if you take it back in the supply chain, there's so many companies that are outsourcing different parts of their business, either to manufacture or to outsource actors and service providers. But what companies want to do is they want to outsource those components for reasons such as economics, etc. But what they don't want to give up is they don't want to give up that visibility and control that they had when it was insourced. So that next step of visibility around how do you allow somebody to outsource and have that same visibility as if it was all on their ERP system as somebody who was doing it internally. And the technology and the tools today allow that, and it's perhaps a bit more of an advancement on the Canon shot that we used to shoot. But time has evolved from that. I also think the other component around the visibility is that I think that if I look at that 50% stat, I think South Africa's lagging a bit, but I think we can catch up quickly, and I think. Give a catalyst for catching up will be the high distribution costs, which I don't think are going to be changing in the short term. So I suppose it's incumbent on companies to start investing in visibility tools to get that visibility. But the important part as well, Jochum, for me, and this is what we discussed, is to say that you don't have to put the visibility tool in and get everybody in as your go live. What it is for companies to invest in the competence and the platform to have visibility, and then bring in all the components. Only one of them being the truck tracking. The other being external factors such as weather or road conditions, etc., and pull that kind of information in. And then I suppose the last point for me is when you make the investment into these visibility platforms. It's what you do with it to monetize it and make the business case work. It's like anything. You can put any platform in, any software in. It's how you act on it. And how do you push back not only to your customer? So when you're dispatching, when the truck is arriving, are you picking to that cage? Because as you can see, the arrivals terminal. You could see that's just the airport arrivals, which we all very used to. Except the BA flights and the Kulula flights are now no longer there. But if you take that kind of mindset and approach, and you start seeing, are you picking to the cage, or if somebody's delayed, don't pick to that cage yet. Yeah, it's the same as the plane. You're now no longer boarding at A8, you're boarding at A7. That's an easy one. It's when they board you at A53 from A7. That's a bit of a haul. But it's that kind of value. So in all those steps, right from the inception to the end, and that's when the business case and the case for change really makes a huge amount of sense. So that gives us 10 minutes left for questions, Jochum, which is, I think, what you were aiming for. Yep.
Yeah. No, there is one more thing that I'd like to end with is that, yeah, maybe you're right, and maybe South Africa or Africa is lagging. But since 2014, when this industry kicked off, we've been collecting data for over the roads, rail, any kind of information. Currently, we are tracking 2.5 million loads per day. So you can tap into that information right away. And that includes current, also we have customers here already on the ground in South Africa, all the way up to the KSA. So we're already tracking in Africa. We have the data, so it's easier for you guys to tap into that information. Right? So with that, we're open for any kind of question you may have.
Any questions from the room?
Thanks. It's David. So my question is regarding the hardware you use to track the loads. In South Africa, we have this hijacking issue, so most of the vehicles already tracked. But can you elaborate a little bit on the hardware? So if we're behind, how can we be behind? Right. Because we already got everything tracked to avoid hijacking, and then also maybe further on tracking more than just vehicles, but actually the products and the packaging. So maybe elaborate around the hardware and tracking devices. Also, IoT, so which kind of technology are we using to track? Thank you.
No, that's a very good question. Currently, but that's all my industry friends do the same. We're able to track any sort of device that's giving out a GPS signal. So even if it's 10, 15 years old, we're able to track it if we know the specifics of that individual device. Then we're able to track it. The way we track it is we connect both to the TMS or the ERP system of the shipper, but where possible also with the software platform of the carrier. So as soon as you as a carrier assigns a load to a specific truck, we get that information, and that way we know exactly which asset to track for that specific load. Very sensitive information. So what we do is we start tracking an asset 4 hours before pickup time to be sure that we know exactly if it's going to be in time or not. And we stop tracking as soon as the load has entered the yard where it's supposed to drop it off. Which means that also we do mind the privacy, and we do understand the commercial need for carriers to not share everything with shippers that they work with. IoT devices that we use, like I said, any kind of devices. What we currently see is a need for SKU level tracking. And there are several mobile trackers that are now available. And I know of one or two instances where they have small GPS trackers that you can literally stick to a box. It's probably work for 3 months, then it will run out, and very well designed that they have no lithium in the batteries, which is again going back to the sustainability, and it's metal used instead of plastic. So it's completely recyclable, and those are the kind of things that allow us now and in the future to track loads on a SKU level. Does that answer your question, or? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Jochum, if I can just add to that before we take the next question. Something else that we've noticed as well is that because we live in South Africa, Jochum, we don't only track, we've got armed armies that come to trucks rescue as well, which is probably a foreign concept for you. But with all these tracking devices that we've got, we're not finding from a truck point of view that the hardware is the problem. It's discussions with transporters and saying, hey, give us access to your tracking. And there's sometimes a reluctance to give access. And one of the excuses is, well, the insurance companies won't allow us. And some is, well, I don't want to now allow you because, you're going to hold me accountable more than ever, kind of thing. So, but this freight train is going. This visibility freight train is going. And if there's any transporters in the room, speak to your insurance companies. If you want to find a way to differentiate yourself in this tough market, find a way that you are the most advanced and forward-thinking in providing data and visibility and having discussions with your insurance companies. Because again, if all you give, the data that they kind of want is going to be displayed, is that arrivals table, not the dot on the map. So there's ways around it. So the hardware is there. It's the uptake and the collaboration that needs perhaps needs to be driven. And again, how do you solve that as a shipper if you're doing it? Well, contract for that. So when you do your RFP for transporters and you say we're going to put a transport RFP out for the next 2 years or 3 years, in the contract and as part of your term sheet in terms of what you're putting out there, say that as part of your price, you need to return that we want visibility while you are carrying our load. But visibility means X, Y, and Z. And then the participants will be part of that process. So just around the hardware, that's it. Yeah. We have another question there?
So my question is really around safety stock and how you use the data. Obviously, you've got to take all this data now and model it and to determine lead time risk by product, by mode of transport, by region. Are you guys involved in the modeling and quantifying of supply chain risk to determine safety stock, or do you provide the data to a third party that would then calculate those? Because I would imagine there's lots of value in quantifying the risk.
Absolutely, and we strongly believe that we need to keep doing what we do very well, focus ourselves on real-time visibility, and work with partners who are very well equipped to help customers find that kind of solutions. So we provide the information, and we work with partners that can do that kind of calculation.
And then, sorry, just a second question, if I can, is are you pushing back any of the data into e-commerce? So if I go online and I buy a T-shirt, am I able to track, that it's left the harbour and it's now arrived in South Africa and it's been handed over? Are we there yet, pushing back statuses back to the retailers?
Yes, we are there. We have a customer that's delivering electronics to consumers. And we're able to share that kind of information, and we are even able to, based on the IP location of the original consumer, we're able to set up the response language according to his or her location. So that's where we're going, and that's one of the things that we aim to keep developing very rapidly, because that's high in demand.